Hello and welcome to the Masterclass Theatre. Well, if you were here for the last session, you'll know that we were weighing up the pros and cons of different types of zero-emission technologies, and I was still as baffled as ever as to which was ultimately going to be the best. I think we're going to be using some of each over the years. And we're continuing the journey towards net zero now during this session, looking at funding options. Our case study is Kent's Zebra-funded electrification of Fastrack BRT, including the thought process of vehicle choice, how funding was approached, why certain products were chosen, and why Kent pursued an unprecedented 15-year contract to ensure the right investment. Taking us through it all is Shane Hymers. He's Network Development Manager with Kent County Council. He led Kent's Zebra-funded electrification project, as well as analysing future technologies and methodologies. Shane Hymers, ladies and gentlemen.
Hi. Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah, I can hear that. Good. I'm Shane Hymers. I'm Network Development Manager at Kent County Council, and I'm here today to talk through what we've done with our electrification programme for our BRT network and give you some lessons learned. And don't worry, I'm not just going to say, don't do it, but it's not been without its challenges. So just to give you a bit of context, Kent has two fast-track bus rapid transit networks. The first is our Kent Thameside network, which operates between Dartford and Gravesend and sits under the shadow of Dartford Crossing. So it's by design is to unlock development in that area without adding to the gridlock, and that's how Fastrack was born. And then our second Fastrack Dover, which actually starts on Sunday, has been born out of a very similar basis. So our second biggest pressure point in Kent for traffic is the Port of Dover, and obviously again, we've got massive amounts of housing being built at the north of this map here. But just for today, because Kent Thameside is already up and running, albeit not with our electric fleet yet, I'm going to talk about it more in the context of that service, but happy to take questions at the end on both. So it's been a long journey for us. So when the DfT announced the Zero Emission Bus Regional Areas Zebra funding, we had already had some thoughts about, well, maybe Kent Thameside Fastrack would be a good contender for a bid, and we were quite confident that we could put a good case together, and we applied for the aptly named Fastrack process of Zebra 1. And that first bit here, essentially in red, had already been sort of done. So we'd put the strategy together, the funding model. We'd looked at service modelling, what type of vehicles and battery capacities and such that we'd go for, which I'll come on to. The financial modelling to see if we could afford it and what changes we needed to make contractually to how we approached the service to be able to do that. And then, the how long and what that would look like. Again, I'll come on to that. And then stakeholder engagement, getting our politicians and stakeholders on board with the process. So we had this design and this idea that basically sat on the shelf, and we thought, well, we'd heard rumours of an opportunity for funding, and sure enough, we were presented with Zebra, and we were ready to put that forward, and we'd already gone through this initial process and governance and got our elected members on board and excited about the prospect. So we bid, and then were over a number of months, some tweaking and working with the DfT's consultants, found out that we would be successful in getting funding. So then that started a whole another process. So then we had to go back through our cabinet committees and get governance and sign off for accepting the funding, etc. And then that's really when the fund started with procurement. So we already had the idea of what vehicle type and what we wanted to achieve and what features the vehicles needed to have. But we also knew that we were going to be doing this in partnership with an operator and would require them to be on board with the funding. And so that's where we had to get the contract right as well. So alongside the procurement element, we were also going through the details of what a operating contract would look like and how long it would be, etc. And went through that process, and that took us about 18 months to get there, to sign with an operator, which is Go Ahead, and to agree the vehicle, which is the IE tram, which I'm sure many of you saw as you come through the door. And then, the other side of it is putting in the charging infrastructure and the pantograph operation that we opted for, which I will come on to. And then, we're about here at the moment with the marketing and the transition from the existing diesel fleet to going over to those electric vehicles in April of next year. So why did we choose firstly to electrify, and why did we choose the vehicle and the charging type we did? Well, I think anyone who's got a demo vehicle, electric vehicle, or hydrogen vehicle has probably had it on our Fastrack network at some point. We've looked at a lot of vehicles, a lot of different configurations, single deck, double deck. We even at one point were considering going down the articulated bus route, but we decided on the Irizar product, which I'll detail in a moment. But I think the key thing was the incentives. So bear in mind that when all this was going on and we were going through the process, we were at the height of COVID. We were seeing drastic drop-off in patronage. And where we were initially modelling that we would comfortably be able to afford to do this, it got closer and closer and closer to that kind of tipping point. And it was only through the combination of the Zebra funding and then the ZEB BSOG offering that it stood up. And again, I spoke about governance. There was such nervousness about affordability that it was so detailed, down to the last penny about how we could do it. But we really wanted to do it. As Kent, I mean, we see Fastrack as the jewel in the crown of the Kent bus network, and we wanted to show that we're taking air quality seriously, and have something a very prominent asset of Kent County Council to be the first service to electrify and be a very visual statement of Kent's intent. But also customer expectation. So we often talk a lot about, well, what does a customer actually want from a bus service? And invariably, it's being a comprehensive service, reliable and affordable and regular and all those things. And then when we looked across surveys in Kent, well, a lot of that we already delivered on Fastrack. Some of it definitely room for improvement, but we had this base level of service of a frequent, reliable. It is Kent's only 24-hour bus service currently. So we had all those bits in place. And then what we saw in our customer satisfaction scoring across the bus network of Kent is lots of areas of Kent are very rural, so people were obviously saying, we just want a bus, we just want a service. Thank you very much. But when we looked at the areas that Fastrack covered, we saw actually, yes, people still want all those things, but we're asking for a little bit more. And actually, where most of the county wasn't too fussed about what propelled the vehicles, we scored significantly higher on expectation of electrification, zero emission, and people moving into these new housing developments around the network. You know, they want something that you know, they can be proud of, and it's a real part of the community. And we know that people would like to say that they're getting a zero emission service. And they don't call it a bus; they call it Fastrack. It has its own identity, so it was absolutely the right move by us. But the last one was, again, I'll come on to the choice for pantographs, but putting this equipment in, putting these charging platforms in, we've looked at how we can spread that energy supply to other services. So we are in talks with other parts of the council, so waste departments, etc., and looking at how, when we're in our downtime or have less buses on the stand, maybe we can sell our energy to other parts of the authority and also other third parties as well. So we do see this primarily as an opportunity, well, designed to operate Fastrack, but in time, we think that we will see other revenues that can come in that will help support and partially fund the service. So why the IE tram? Well, we love it. I think it's, from the off, we wanted something that made a statement. We wanted it to be very visual on the street, that there's a step change, it's a new operation, new operator, it's electric, and we think this does that. It's, you know, we think very, very striking, and yeah, a massive step change from what we've had. And from our customers' point of view, and the testing, soft testing we've done, they really like the design, and so many elements of the vehicle are born out of feedback from our customers. So they told us that they wanted tables, so we've put tables on there. We like to think our journey times are so short and quick that by the time you get your laptop out, you know, you're off the bus. So, but it's that perception of quality and perception that you know, this is to a different standard and a different level. So yeah, we felt that this really demonstrated that. Obviously, as it says here, it's, you know, we feel is a proven product in Europe. We've gone out to see lots of operations and operators operating these, and, you know, very good feedback on them and reliability and such. A few bits that we felt, you know, we could, with go ahead, talk, you know, engineering-wise about panel sizes and such, and that's an ongoing conversation. And I think it's fair to say Irizar have been a real breath of fresh air to work with in that regard. And also, like I said before, not a bus. So we already have this perception that Fastrack is Fastrack, not a bus service. So we really felt we would double down on that. And we now have a swear jar in the team that if you say the word bus, you have to put £1 in it, because we just want to be calling this Fastrack. And then, yeah, opportunity charged. So the reason that we went for opportunity charging in the end is, well, this is a contracted service. So if we have the assets on street to charge the vehicles, if there's a change of operator or end of the contract or anything like that, we haven't got to rely on depot assets to run the vehicles. We can use our equipment that is already out there. Less weight. So actually, by having constant charging throughout the day, we're able to have less batteries on the vehicle, which means we can carry more passengers. And this has been tuned very finely to our demand on the network. So we have We have some real super peaks where the buses are very busy, but then we have a lot of downtime in the day where the services, we didn't want to be sending around articulated buses or double-deckers carrying fresh air either, because that, again, gives the wrong perception of the service. So the balance between having the lighter packs and charging on street, that was a consideration. Also, no downtime. So we're a 24-hour service, and we hope to, with our new contracts with Irizar and IKEA, etc., and doing lots of their shift work, we're going to get busier and busier and more around the clock. So the buses, we don't see them increasingly spending too much time at the depot. And then lastly, commercial opportunities. So again, this is an on-street asset. This can be a shop window for us. Primarily, it says we've gone electric. This is a step change for Fastrack, but in the not too distant future, that's going to be old news. Now, again, people go back to fine, it's electric, but again, we want it reliable. We just want more frequency and better fares, etc., etc. So, this will cause some excitement initially, no doubt, but then it's just business as usual. But what we're left with is these units that are in high-profile, heavy footfall locations that we can vinyl wrap or put screens on, or So again, it's a presence, and it's an opportunity for us to sell the network. So in terms of funding, we've spoken about the Zebra contribution, which tipped the balance. But this is a contracted service, but it's not a subsidised service. So Kent County Council contract this service because of its strategic importance for the highway network, not because it's socially necessary, but it doesn't take good revenue, because it does. But we knew that when we went out to market to procure a bus operator, we would be asking them, even with the Zebra contribution, for a significant investment in this. And I think we've really listened. So what feedback we got from bus operators was, great, yeah, we love operating these contracts for you, but we want confidence. If you're asking us to invest significant funding, we want to see a really different type of contract. So we agreed, which took some time and some convincing of our members, but we agreed that we would go for a 15-year operating contract with the opportunity to extend by 5 to 20 years. And that, as we see it, is the potential life of the vehicle and the operation, etc. So we had to have, it's a lot of money involved in this, so we had to have that level of a commitment to it, an input to make it stack up. And then, ongoing expansion. We've got this delivery model now, we know what it looks like, and it's something, again, because of the chargers and because of the way that we control the busways and such, it's something we can keep building on and building on and building on. So, we've got lots of developments in the local area in the pipeline that we will continue to expand and continue to get those contributions, but we've set a level of expectancy now. So when we're looking at planning agreements, we're not just saying you need to provide provision for a bus, we're saying you need to provide provision for BRT, and you need to provide provision enough so that it can operate to this higher standard of operation with the zero emission fleet. So I think in terms of key lessons, communication, that I've been so blown away by how many different people you need to get involved with this, particularly with where we've done on-street charging. So many parties involved, landowners, network route, etc. So if anyone's thinking of doing this and in a way of this or similar, get out there and talk to people early, even if you're not there yet with the final plan and agreement. Just understand what it is that needs to be achieved. And that's it. I've just been advised I've got 5 minutes left, so I'll leave that for questions.
Thanks very much indeed, Shane. That was really interesting. Just given our previous presenter who was sort of making the case that hydrogen should never be ruled out, did you consider hydrogen as an option before you went into the electrification process?
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, hydrogen performed very well on Fastrack. We had a couple of hydrogen vehicles out in our trial period, and they were very strong contenders. I think what tipped the balance for us is those benefits of pantograph operation that we saw as a wider picture, and that tipped it, but we would have been very content with a hydrogen operation, and we absolutely see a future for it, particularly for us in Kent at the moment with longer journeys and coach operations and that sort of thing. But we could have been happily stood here today talking hydrogen too.
And then just one other thing that occurred to me. Your charging points, which are or some of them are in the public realm, obviously in streets and public areas. Are you convinced that these units will be completely resistant to vandalism of any kind? Because obviously normally if you've got it in your depot, it's under your control.
Yeah, that is a concern for us, and I think we do suffer from vandalism on our network. Our bus shelters we're constantly replacing glass panels, and to the point where our new design is really focused on eradicating vandalism. I think with these, yes, we've looked at extra security measures, so CCTV and arrangements with the local district councils for monitoring and such. But it is a real risk and something we've had to consider.
Yeah, I don't want to be a pessimist, but it does happen sometimes. Anybody got any questions for Shane? Yes, I'll come over to you there. Excuse me, sir.
Hi, Curzon Keane, Transport for the North. How did you manage to swing a 15-year contract when there's little certainty in terms of funding from the government?
Sorry, I didn't catch the last part.
She was asking, how did you manage to swing a 15-year contract when there's little certainty in terms of government? I mean, 15 years, governments can change, funding arrangements change.
Good question. So, we had to make that commitment. We had to treat we've always looked at Fastrack as a kind of a micro franchise. So even before all this talk of franchising and such, we've always seen it that way. We know there's a long-term development strategy for the area, and we know that there'll be consistent streams of funding coming through that. But we had to fundamentally make sure that the fare box and levels of patronage that made this self-funding, so that we could say across its life that it would look after itself. Now, we don't know that there's not going to be another pandemic, or that we've had to factor in risk for decline in patronage or other things coming along. So there's talk of a new tram link and such locally, and that could come in maybe in the 15 years. So what we've done is we've created a reserve as well for the service. So we do have a rainy day fund for if we encounter that. And we have levers in our contract with Go Ahead to upscale and downscale the level of service if we need to go down that road.
Okay. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
One of the criticisms of the Zebra funding was that there's a limited time scale for getting the bids in. Do you think if you hadn't have had that package sitting on the shelf, that you could have met that fast-track timing?
Absolutely not, no. If I'm being completely honest today, and that's why I separated that out, because Kent's done very well, obviously from Zebra, but also from BSIP, because we've had a number of schemes that have just been drawn up, ready and presented. But I do think that those time scales could improve, and there could certainly be more time for operators to consider. But yeah, Fastrack in particular, my team are always designing the next thing. We've got lots of things on the shelf that will never see the light of day, but they're there and they're ready to go with a bit of polishing if and when funding opportunities come up.
Great. Anybody else with a final question for Shane at all? No? Okay, well, thank you very much indeed for that presentation, giving us lots to think about there. And it's an interesting system you've got there in Kent. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you for having me.